oh yeah. Make me wobble, make me whole body bubble. And me know I say a trouble when you're ready for the double and you hit that note in the middle. Play with it a little. Why your son a tickle? I'm telling you that hit that note in the middle. Stay with it a little. Why your son a tickle? I'm feeling them.
Hey, great, we're live on YouTube. Again, what a fantastic way to start these meetings. Just slightly different to our usual welcome and going over things like their safe spaces agreements and things like that. Marcelo, Daniela, and I just wanted to say a few words about the fact that this is our last online meetup. I've certainly really enjoyed being part of the team and coming into the world of the Social Art Network and the London team that made this all happen. And over the last 6 meetups now, I've really got to see and experience and be part of a whole host of an eclectic mix of socially engaged practice. So I've really enjoyed my time being here and seeing you all, even though I've been slightly more behind the scenes than everyone else. So I just wanted to say a big thank you for everyone who's attended the meetup so far, and I do hope to see you all again at some point in the future. Daniela, do you want to go next?
Hi, yes, thanks, John. Hi, everyone. And yeah, thank you for joining us for, I think, a very special closing event. As John said, the Meetup has been, is a very amazing place. I don't know, I was really looking forward to every month where, to hear like voices, stories, and experience in what it felt like a very generous and nurturing way. So it's been, I don't know, I'm very grateful to be here, to be part of this. And yeah, it's been a very special place that's connected us and many others. And I don't know, it just made me feel part of a new community of really like-minded people, I suppose. So yeah, I will be the co-host for today's event on Zoom. And yeah, if you have any question, any technical issues about the format, you can get in touch with me privately using the chat. I will be throughout the event like posting some documents such as John mentioned, like the Safe Spaces Agreement, the online participation guidelines. And this is really to keep the space a safe space for everyone. So if you haven't read it yet, please make sure you read it now. I hand it over to Marcelo now.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's really nice to be here at the last of a long series of events. I thought I'd celebrate the end of 2020 by doing a little homage to what 2020 has been like. It's been a bit like this, hasn't it? And what a way to end this kind of beautiful year than by finding joy in the pain. So we're really lucky to have playing some music. And we all know, everyone here, that a lot of our work is about the challenges and the difficulty of participation. So we're going to have some fun and we're going to play with those challenges and difficulties of participation. Welcome, Queer House Party.
Our intro, that was iconic. Hi, yeah, we're we're two of Queer House Party. We have a whole different webcam setup, so excuse me if I'm looking in the wrong place at the wrong time. But yeah, I'm Seren/Watcher, and this is
Nick or Parser. Yeah.
And we're two of Queer House Party, and we're really chuffed to be invited, and a little bit nervous, I guess, because until we spoke to Marcelo, we hadn't really thought about Queer House Party as like an artistic practice. So this has been like a really interesting experience, like chatting with Marcelo and Daniela and kind of learning about how we can start thinking about this as more of a social art practice. So without further ado, we thought it would be nice to start off by having a bit of a dance. We've already had a little bit of a dance as the intro, but until past, we're going to play some music in true Queer House Party fashion, and we're going to spotlight some of your videos. And it'd be really nice if you have a go at just like having a dance, seeing what you can do with a space, and seeing how it feels. And then after that, we'll have a bit of a chat about, just about like what it's like to dance alone in your room, because we're experts at that now. So yeah, we're gonna play some music for a little bit, and we'll catch you again at past and have a chat about that. So yeah, see you then.
Nothing at the liquor, play with it a little. Why your son a tickle? I'm telling you that hit that. Nothing at the liquor, stay with it a little. Why your son a tickle? I'm feeling them. Walking gently and I broke up my bone. Easy now, no need to go down. Easy now, no need to go down. Rock that, run that, this away from. Easy now, no need to go down. Easy now, no need to go down. Rock that, run that, this away from. Ati, just a back it up. Ati, just a
You to make it hot, treat it like a mountain, climb on the top. And me got the big key, I have it lock the place a earthquake. Girl, I coulda what do that, the party bun down now. What they run now, when I sun down, loud like the drums in a bongo. Run down, watch it, that's how you a run now. Make it jump now, sprawl out, all out, panic rum now. Bounce a girl, she no fit. Jiggle up your ass and show off, she no fit. Laugh on a girl, can't dance, she no fit. Back it up on the box and wine and fall off one more time. Bounce a girl, she no fit. Jiggle up your ass and show off, she no fit. Laugh on a girl, can't dance, she no fit. Back it up on the box and wine and fall off. Ati, just a back it up, drop it, back it up, drop it. Got it said good and she knows that she got it. Back it up, drop it, back it up, drop it. She don't really care if you think that she ratchet. Back it up, drop it, back it up, drop it. Catch it, that's all. She a tell me to drop it, drop it, drop it, drop it, drop it. Put it on the feet, don't stop it. Treat it like a mountain, climb on the top. Me got the pot to make it hot. Treat it like a mountain, climb on the top. Me got the pot to make it hot. Treat it like a mountain, climb on the top. Me got the pot.
that bitch, still that bitch. Will forever be that bitch, be that bitch. Yeah. I'm the hood Mona Lisa, break a nigga into pieces. Had to X some cheesy niggas out my circle like a pizza. I'm way too exclusive, I don't shop on Insta boutiques. All the little ass clothes, only fit fake booties. Catfish, still talking cash shit. Pussy like butter, I'm a mother and relaxing. I would never trick on a nigga if I had him. Bitch, that's my cash.
But that don't, fancy,
I'm a savage. That bitch. 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 I'm a savage. That bitch.
Passa a linguinha na minha bucetinha, mas o primeiro deixa a molhadinha. Calma, garoto, é só no dedinho. Me chupa gostoso, me deixa excitar. Passa a linguinha na minha bucetinha, mas o primeiro deixa a molhadinha. Calma, garoto, é só no dedinho. Me chupa gostoso, me deixa excitar. É questão de calma e concentração. Depois que eu gozar, tu taca a vara. Mete gostoso, tu soca lá dentro, me bota de quatro, me ouve gemer. Mete gostoso, tu soca lá dentro, me bota de quatro, me ouve gemer. Tu bota de quatro, me ouve gemendo, não pode esquecer da minha perna tremendo. Tu bota de quatro, me ouve gemendo, não pode esquecer da minha perna tremendo. Tu bota de quatro, me ouve gemendo, não pode esquecer da minha perna tremendo.
Shanique Marie, come see my shop the place. Everybody tell me, say that little girl your vice. Everybody tell me, say that little girl your vice. Everybody tell me, say that little girl your vice. Everybody tell me, say that little girl your vice. Now show me love, girl, show me love. Everybody don't know Shanique Marie, come see my shop the place. Still no matter where me go, ratings and respect, still no matter where me go. Still no matter where me go, now show me love, girl, show me love. Show me love, girl, don't play.
Guess what? The bitch is back. She can't stir up the crowd and light a match, make a nigga sweat for Olivia. That's a fact. Getting litty in my city and I don't know how to act. Throw shade, I'm up the bat. Moving in the moment, cause we on a club comeback. 30 sleeping floors, since across the board, it's time to jack. Pumping on the beats, yo, DJ bring it back like.
I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? Cause I'ma shake that thing and move those hips. I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? Cause I'ma shake that thing and move those hips. I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? Cause I'ma shake that thing and move those hips. I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? I don't know about you, but how about this? Cause I'ma shake that thing and move those hips.
Those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips. I don't shake that thing and move those hips.
I don't know about you, but how about this?
Hello. Just doing some techie bits. Give us 2 secs. Just spotlight myself. Oh, hello. Here I am. Oh, there's so many me's. Too many cameras up. Hello. Hope you enjoyed a bit of a dance. I'm going to speak as slowly as I can, Rachel. I have a bit of a tendency to speak extremely quickly. Not everyone always tells me this. Okay. Hey, thank you so much for having us. We hope you had a good dance. First thing we're going to do, just to introduce you to the Queer House Party canon, so to speak, is just to show you a little vid from one of our parties that we did a while ago, to show you the kind of like the perfect gallery screen that we sometimes get the pleasure of experiencing at Queer House Party. And I think Nick's going to share that now. I think this was Queer House Party 15. There's been so many, I've just completely lost track. We want it from 35 minutes and 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. And it's a scan through. Okay. Oh, no, I might have needed to do that.
Sorry, we're just having a couple of technical difficulties. Bear with us in the meantime. Oh.
I think. Ask them if you heard that.
Can people give me a thumbs up if you can hear the audio being played now?
PayPal.me/HarryGay. It means that we can keep on putting on these. A little bit. I think that's probably coming through the microphone. I need to.
2 seconds.
The password again. From Ted. Can you remember it?
Yes. Sorry, 1 sec. Okay, we go.
It went for 35 seconds. 35 minutes.
Well, you know what? You'll just have to imagine it. As you can see, it's a big old screen of people dancing, and that's the usual Queer House Party experience. I don't know why this isn't working. You'd think that as a virtual party, we'd be really smooth at doing this stuff, but literally anytime you take us out of our comfort zone of just doing a party, we just don't know what we're doing. So I reckon let's just carry on, and maybe try that again later. So we're just going to give you a quick intro to who Queer House Party are, who we are, and then I will kind of go into a little bit more of stuff that's a bit relevant to you guys and some questions about kind of what it's like to dance alone in your bedroom and what that means for us all, and yeah, all the kind of deep stuff that we're here for. So first off, I will pass over to Nick just to give us a little bit of an intro into how Queer House Party started, and then yeah, to you, Nick.
Yes, thank you. So Queer House Party has now been going for around since basically the mid-March, whenever, I think it was actually the first Friday before lockdown, although we say the first Friday of lockdown. It started around because as the pubs were starting to shut and we're in a house of a few like DJs and organizers, and we had enough kind of audio tech, and we were supposed to be having a house party and an assortment of like DJ sets essentially, and we initially started it as a way to kind of make up for lost bookings, also as kind of like initially a safe way to get together with just our friends. I think it was supposed to be someone's birthday sometime shortly after lockdown, and I guess it was kind of a pseudo birthday. And then from then on, it has kind of snowballed into something kind of quite different than that. The first house party kind of brought a lot more people together than we were expecting, and it kind of had a bit more of a different vibe than we were expecting. There was kind of a large like feeling of catharsis, I think. Initially it was just like, now we can know how to share screens so we can see the audience dancing. Initially it was just us dancing in the kitchen solidly for about 4 hours, which was quite exhausting, but like we slowly learned how to bring a lot more elements in, like external performers, which you would have seen in the video we're about to show you. Also BSL interpreters, which obviously you can see going on now, and a lot of other accessibility requirements like captioning, like audio describing. And we essentially did it for every Friday for about 10 weeks on the trot. Before that started to get really exhausting, and we've kind of spaced it out a bit more. and ended up collaborating with a lot of people, like some sex workers collective that we're still collaborating with to this day called Cybertees. I don't know if I'm missing things necessarily.
That's a really good
Overview. Shall I finish the overview?
If you want to.
No, I think let's go.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if that, just to like let that sink in our first party, we were the only person on screen for 5 hours. That was what we did, and we quickly realized that was not sustainable at all. And so I suppose like that's probably like quite an interesting and important thing to say about Queer House Party is like it's been a process of very much like trial and error. So like every single part we've done, we've learned something and we've included like a new thing. And that's been what's been really beautiful about, I think, the way in which the lockdown has kind of brought the community together. And also, I think quite a like queer specific element, that kind of like DIY, like let's just give it a go, because the queer scene has always had to do that. And so people are very used to that. So the next thing that I'm going to kind of like go into a little bit is just like how the party's changed since March. Like since then, kind of like Nick said, we were all quite shocked at how much attention it got. I think it was just like the sort of first thing that happened. And so a lot of news media outlets kind of wanted to go into it as like a puff piece because it was like a nice thing to talk about during the pandemic, and we were like a bunch of cute queers in a house like, oh, we're having a party, and they all wanted to kind of go into it. So that was nice initially, and we really wanted to kind of like make the most of that attention to as much as possible to kind of promote and pioneer like a space that has accessibility very much at its core rather than an add-on. So the accessibility is part of Queer House Party. It's like a very integral, both creative and strategic part of what we do. It's not just like a kind of afterthought. And we have also, like Nick said, worked with Cybertees, who are a online strip club formed of unionized strippers, so I'd really recommend that everyone checks out if they don't know them, which is another really good example of a like very, very radical online movement that's kind of come out about the same time as we did, and who've really like inspired us, and with whom we've like very much like kind of worked throughout the last 6-7 months. Yeah, so next thing to go. Oh, apparently the share screen is going to work, and I think it'll be nice to have a little look, so that you can tell that we actually do have people come to our parties. We're not just lying. Here we go.
My bitch will get on the ground just to make sure that I sound.
I feel like we should have given you a bit of a crotch warning there. I'm sorry. There was a lot of crotch going on. That does happen in Queer House Party a lot. We have a lot of people checking to make sure that it's like a safe space, kind of like you guys do. But we do allow a crotch because we love a crotch. So yeah, so next thing I just want to like go over a little bit, going to show you some more videos. It's just like the sort of accessibility that Queer House Party provides. So I'm going to show you how like beautifully creative and enriching it is to have BSL interpretation alongside an artistic performance. Like you might already know how great this is, and we're preaching to the choir, but we love it so much and we've learned a lot from it. And it's kind of through this experience that we've realized how shocking it is, I suppose, that this isn't already an integral part of the queer sector and of the art sector in general. So yeah, is this going to work, Nick?
If you tell me how far along the video you want it.
1 second. Okay.
the UK make her happy, and she's happy to be here tonight. I'm so ready for this. I cannot even.
Hello. Take it in. Take it in. Yes. I always got an issue with gay men grabbing my boobs, especially at brunch. You're sitting there drinking a mimosa. All of a sudden, boom, gay man's hand right here. Pulsing. Looking you in the face going, oh girl, it's all right, I'm gay. That's why you can't do it. Because no one puts the keys in a Lamborghini, starts the car, and gets out. So if you grab my boob, you're having sex with me, gay man. It's not gay men grabbing my boobs. I got white women putting their hands in my afros. Because they're not classy when they put their hand in your afro. They don't want to stay on the perimeter of the afro. She don't want to keep it Christian, no. She takes the whole hand, goes straight to the scalp, shake it back and forth, and then exit your afro with this jellyfish action while she's looking at her friend going, Lauren, it's so soft. It's like a poodle, it's so soft. I was at the grocery store the other day buying food because I'm a human. And the guy at the register, you know, he's checking me out, but he's checking me out because I'm pretty. He's like, hey, girl, yeah, you know, I really like to take you out. I mean, you know, after you lose like 20, 30 pounds. Oh, I'm sorry. I couldn't hear you over the minimum wage. What'd you say? Don't speak poverty. I'm so sorry. So sorry.
Mirror, mirror on the wall, don't say it 'cause I know I'm cute. Baby, Louis down to my drawers, LV all on my shoes. I be dripping so much sauce, got a bed looking like Grey Goose. Lit up like a crystal ball, that's cool, baby, so is you. That's how I roll. If I'm shining, everybody gonna shine. I was born like this, don't even gotta try. I like shot a nigga better over the time. They just say I'm not the baddest bitch you like. It ain't my fault that I'm out here getting loose. Gotta blame it on the goose. Gotta blame it on my juice, baby. It ain't my fault that I'm out here making news. Time to put it in the proof. Gotta blame it on my juice. Yayadi, 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 yayadi. Blame it on my juice. Blame it on my juice. Yayadi, 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 yayadi. Blame it on my juice. Blame it on my juice.
Yes, we are all sluts. You're a slut. All these dudes behind you are sluts. Your cameraman's a slut. Your PA's a slut.
And what made you a slut?
Because I own my body. My body is not a political playground. It's not a place for legislation. It's mine, and it's my future. Hey.
How old are you?
Grown.
Grown. And so you sleep around with a lot of men?
No, actually, I'm a virgin.
You're a virgin?
Yeah.
So you're not a slut?
Yes, you can be a slut. Because a slut is not what you made it, Jesse. A slut is what I made it. A boss, getting money, taking the mic, turning life around.
So you are still a virgin, but yet you call yourself a slut?
It wouldn't matter. I'm saying it doesn't matter if I'm a virgin. It doesn't matter what a woman's sexual history is. A slut is just a word that you and your fellow penises made. A slut. Your mama's a slut. Your grandma's a slut. Slut is a word for anybody who's owning their sexuality, turning up, and not letting Jesse twist their answers around.
Let me ask, do you believe in God?
Yes, Jesse. I believe in God.
Would God want you to be a slut?
God would want me to be whatever I want to be.
Would he want you to be a slut?
He would want me to be whatever I want to be.
How about a slut?
Whatever I want to be.
And why would he want you to be a slut?
He would want me to be whatever I want to be because God believes in choice. And you should know that, Jesse. That's why you're allowed to wear this lame ass shirt.
I know that I'm out here getting loose. Gotta blame it on the goose. Gotta blame it on my juice.
So that was the incredible Why Is She Black and Max, who's our house interpreter for all our parties, and Why She's done a couple parties with us now. She's amazing. So yeah, that was just give you a little taste of the kind of experience that people get at a house party. We also have audio description, which people can call into, which is just hilarious. Like Dot is just a full-time comedian, and like it's basically what I'm getting at is that it's like it's enriching in so many ways, like regardless of whatever access needs you may have. Like it's an incredible experience. And what we're trying to do with Queer House Party is say, like, why isn't that happening everywhere? Because it benefits everyone. And the final part of this shambles of a talk, and I'm sorry about this, we're not used to doing this kind of thing. We're used to just DJing and dancing, and I'm not used to kind of doing the art chat. So I hope that you can forgive me. But there's a few sort of small things that I thought that we could think about together in terms of like sort of queer partying, virtual partying, and the things that I've been thinking about since we were contacted by Social Art Network. And the first one is that I think for a lot of the community, a lot of the queer community, lockdown really highlighted the need to create moments of joy as like a very like conscious, cultivated practice. Like when those moments were taken away from us, suddenly the habits of going out on a Friday night, the kind of places that you would go to without even really thinking, the people that you would call up, that was taken away. And so we were all forced to really actually think quite deeply about what it was that we needed. And I think what Queer House Party tapped into is the importance of nightlife spaces, of queer nightlife spaces, as moments of connection and moments of freedom and moments of catharsis. And actually what's quite beautiful about that is that I think for a lot of queer people, it's quite common to feel as though your queerness is in some way associated with sort of hedonism, with queer clubs being a place that you go to fuck, with it being very involved in drug culture, and there being a negative element to that. But actually, I think what's become quite clear is that the spaces that we create serve a need that goes far, far beyond whatever like short-term goal you might be pursuing. Not that that's at all invalid, but that we all need these spaces in order to reach out to one another and just to have a dance, whether that's in our own room or whether that's in a club. And I think that what Queer House Party and what other online spaces have allowed us to sort of explore is a much more sort of level playing ground, because you don't really need to know anyone to come to Queer House Party in the same way that you would do to go to like a club in Dalston in London. And you know, you don't need to be a cool kid, you don't need to know the DJ, you don't need to pay loads of money to get in, you don't need to be wearing something amazing. You can really just come from wherever you are, from whoever you are. Like, it's very leveling, and I think that that's quite an exciting and important step to take as a queer community, especially when there's been a real process of commercialization within queer spaces that have really fetishized the kind of exclusivity of it. And I think online spaces, while I'm sure we'll have a really interesting discussion about the pros and cons of them, actually like really create new territory for exploring a much more equal opportunity space. So that's one whole thing. Another whole thing which I've been thinking about a lot is the fact that a lot of things that have come out of this lockdown have been a really interesting kind of demonstration of the ways in which we can powerfully manipulate technology to serve our needs. And I think the rhetoric is often very much like we're being manipulated by technology and by these huge corporations, and we don't really have a say in it, but it's kind of this reinsertion of our own agency into platforms like Zoom, which were created for video conferences. And suddenly it's being used for online strip clubs and like queer raves. And that's really interesting, actually. And I think I wonder like what lessons we can learn from that. And I wonder to what extent there is agency and how we can kind of take that moment and kind of make something of it. Yeah, I think I've pontificated enough. So I think at this point, we're going to open up the chat to the group and see whether maybe for the next like 15 minutes, people want to split into breakout rooms and just have a bit of a chat about what it was like being in a queer disco on Zoom, whether you enjoyed it, whether you hated it, whether you think that this is a terrible thing for humanity and we're all just gonna become like robots, or whether you think actually it's really interesting and radical. Like, we're really, really interested. So I'll hand over to Marcelo to organize this next one.
Thank you so much. That was a really great presentation. And before we kind of tune out from our stream, maybe very brief conversation for those people in this room.
for the benefit of those who might be watching into the future and on YouTube at the moment. And so if anybody has any questions or comments, please feed them in. You can kind of just give a shout out on the chat box. And I thought I would kick off. I was really interested in your resource doc. So on the website, there's a resource doc that's been put together, loads of really interesting things about what we're talking about right now in terms of the digital spaces much needed in 2020. You talk about Irving Goffman and the performance of self and everyday life. And I was really interested in this idea of backstage and front stage, and how the offer of what you've been putting together allows that backstage to happen. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more. Why do you think that allows it to happen? Because ultimately we're hacking corporate technology for our own purposes. Why does it work? In your opinion, why do you think coming together in this space and this site gives us that backstage to front stage?
Do you know what? I put the whole Goffman thing in when I was feeling really pretentious, and I was really hoping that no one was going to bring it up, but here we are. No, I do think it's really interesting, and it is a really interesting question. And I suppose it's one that we all struggle with a lot, the moment of like when you're on your phone in bed and there's a real sense of the kind of invasion of your space, and where does that end? Like when you put your phone down and you turn it over, is it still there in your mind? And I think like I also put Donna Haraway in the resource doc, and she's someone who talks a lot about the cyborg and the fact that we're all kind of these cyborg beings now who have technology very innately as a part of our reality. And I wonder, I suppose I've thought quite a lot about how these moments that we've had together over the past few months, have they eroded even more that barrier between the kind of, because Goffman talks a lot about the bedroom as being the space of refuge where you're no longer having to perform, and that's a really interesting concept for us in an age of social media, because that's not true anymore. And like, have the last few months gone even further in eroding that space, and to what extent do we need that space? And it's quite interesting to think about whether or not there is a human self without that performance. I'm going to stop going down that route because I'm just going to like go into a hole, but I do think there's a kind of quite interesting vulnerability and authenticity that comes from joining a party from your own bedroom, and I think that relates a lot to queerness. I think that relates a lot to the experience that we've had over the past few months of being very much faced with our own mortality, and kind of it just being very up for really sharing that vulnerability and wanting to connect with people from our own spaces, where beforehand that might have been something that was very off limits. And I think that's a really interesting and quite beautiful thing to have come out of a very dark period, is that real opening up of the personal. And I know that that's true in a more political sense, from, if, for example, a greater awareness of people's childcare needs, like people are there with their children in Zooms, and people are having to leave Zooms to go and attend to things in their houses. And we're much more aware of the reality of people's lives, where beforehand that was very disconnected. We were expected to fundamentally disconnect our private life from our professional life. And I hope that disconnect has now subsided. Whether it will, we don't know. I mean, late capitalism seems to be able to overcome these barriers very easily. But I hope that an outcome of this, I mean, just to like slightly go further down this route, it's quite interesting to me how like, I don't know whether anyone else here has experienced this. Zoom and kind of these virtual interactions have enabled me to interact with friends who I just would never have seen. I would never have spoken to. I'm having much more frequent interaction with them, and my wider family as well, who I wouldn't have done previously. And that's true of people who might need to, look after their kids, or might have like work late. Like we're much able to be much more flexible because we're not having to travel across huge distances to go to meetings. And so it's quite interesting to me that there's this kind of dark side of it, which is that like this connection isn't enough, and we all know this. Like we all get Zoom anxiety and exhaustion, and it's really not enough. Like we need human connection, but at the same time, like we've created a society that makes it impossible to do the things that we want to do to connect with people. So I don't know what the middle ground is there, because yeah, this amazing technology has allowed us to kind of overcome what previously would have prevented us from accessing spaces for accessibility reasons, for childcare reasons. But it's not enough. So, I mean, what we do next, I don't know. Marcelo, any ideas?
Thank you so much. No, that was really wonderful. I'm just gonna see if anyone else wants to shout out, if anybody else has any comments in the room. So thank you so much. Let's have smaller conversations in our breakout room. To the audience who's been joining us on YouTube, it's been great having a dance with you. We follow Queer House Party and our upcoming parties. So we'll say goodbye to the streaming on YouTube. And we will now go into small breakout rooms with a few people just to talk about what it means to create joy in troubled times.